Hello and welcome to week 6. So, you should feel a sense of pride at this point in the semester because you have made it to the last discussion board post week. This week, you will be reading up to page 200 in Casey Lyman's long division. And also, I want you to start thinking about your final assignment. So, there are a couple of things that I want to get into before I tackle those two aspects. And the first thing is coming back to your discussion board posts, or I should say your past discussion board posts in the previous weeks. Overall, I think that we're all doing a great job on our discussion board posts. But please keep in mind with your upcoming discussion board posts, along with your final assignment, that I am going to be a little bit more strict on those little particulars like MLA citations and including references to the things that you observe. So I don't want you, when you're answering the questions, to just simply answer the question based off of your opinion, but I want your opinion to be backed up with evidence of textual analysis. And that textual analysis has to be supplemented with the in-text citations. So make sure that you keep that in mind as you move forward with discussion board number 6, along with the final assignment. For this week's discussion board post, you only have 5 questions to answer. And in the first question, I want you to describe 2 key events, one from the past and one from the present, that have developed the plot in Lyman's novel Long Division. So I want you to think about the 2 time periods, and I want you to think about a significant moment within those time periods in regards to the setting that help move the plot along, and I want you to describe that. So in the question number 1, you're going to be breaking down scenes and analyzing those scenes in the text. And question number 2, I want you to think about the new characters, some of the new characters that have been introduced in this section. And I want you to think about why these characters might be significant. So when you're thinking about these characters, you're also thinking about the characters that have already been introduced to. So you're thinking about how these secondary characters are influencing the actions and the decisions that these primary characters that you're already aware of, how that's sort of influencing the decisions and the things that they do throughout the text. The third thing I'm going to want you to do, or I should say the third question in your discussion board post for this week, is I want you to go back to week number 5 and I want you to refer to question number 7, and I want you to think about particularly why Lavender is crying during that competition. So last week, remember when we read about this in the story, how City and Lavender are in this competition on can you basically make a sentence out of this word. So there are a lot of issues around this idea of this competition in the first place. And I want you to think about that in regards to the setting, in regards to race, in regards to culture. And then I want you to think about, remember we read in that first reading selection how Lavender was crying. And even though he won, we're going to find out in this particular section for this week why exactly he cried, or why tears were welling up in his eyes. So I want you to think about that, and I also want you to continue to come back to this moment in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man when the narrator is giving this speech. You don't necessarily have to make that connection to Invisible Man this week, but I want you to be thinking about that as you answer question number 3 for this week. And number 4, I want you to think about what exactly is long division. So long division is referred to throughout this story in both time periods, in both the present, in this case 2012, 2013, and also the past, which is 1985. So I want you to think about what long division is, and also why is long division significant in this story, and what is Lyman doing here when it comes to this idea of point of view and actually taking a book, a story within a story. So essentially his book appears within his book. So I want you to sort of think about that when you're answering that question in regards to what is long division. And finally, a lot of the things that you're doing for question number 5, you're basically putting together all of these sort of literary analysis elements that I've been asking you to do over the course of the semester. For example, analyze things in relationship to plot, character, setting, theme. Looking at like things like language, looking at things like tone, looking at, making predictions on what you think is going to happen next. So what I want you to do in question number 5 is that I want you to choose a scene from pages 78 to 200, and I want you to compare that scene to anything that we have read over the course of this semester. It can be from the selection from Zora Neale Hurston. It can be from Dorothy West. It can be from a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks. It can be from Richard Wright's The Man Who Lived Underground. We've already forged a connection between Ralph Ellison and this story. So you can't use Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. Well, you can use Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, but you can't use the scene in which the narrator is giving his speech and compare that to the competition that in which Lavander and City participate. But anything else is fair game. And when you are answering this question, again, you want to be able to support your answer with concrete contextual examples from the stories that you are discussing, and also include maybe 1 or 2 direct quotes along with the citations or the page numbers from where you pulled those quotes. And then remember, you need to synthesize that, which means you gotta tell the reader why these 2 scenes or why the elements in these scenes are intersecting or why they're connecting. So I want you to go into, thoroughly discuss that question in question number 5. Now, along with the discussion board number 6, I also want you to start thinking about your final project, or not final project, your final assignment. And what I'm doing right now is I am pulling that up. So, in your final assignment, remember, your final assignment will have 3 questions. In that first question, I am asking you to choose at least 2 of the writers that we've covered this semester, and I want you to get into their point of view, and based off of their social context, the things that they've written, I want you to comment on Kiese Laymon's long division. All right. So you will, you'll have the novel finished by that time, but I want you to think about, what would George Samuel Schuyler say about some of the themes that are going on in this story, and why would he say that? What would Larry Neal say about this? Would he feel like that this story is a story of revolution? What would Zora Neale Hurston say about the use of language in this story? So, there's this scene where City is with his grandmother. He's going to be chastised after he does what he does during the competition. And, he says that, his grandmother has this at the mall voice, and this, sort of voice that she speaks of, she speaks when she's in the home. So, what would Zora Neale Hurston say about that? What would she say about how language is used in this story? So I want you to think deeply about that first question as you're moving forward. Question number 2, I want you to start thinking about locating the films that you are going to use for question number 2. Again, do this as soon as possible so that if you have any issues finding a film, you can let me know, or you can post that on the discussion board, and we can help each other out. But for the most part, I haven't had any problems locating these films. Like I said, for instance, Bamboozled, Spike Lee's Bamboozled, the whole film is on YouTube. Other films you'll be able to find at your local library. You'll be able to find at Delta College's library. You'll be able to find at Family Video. You'll be able to find online through Amazon. You might have to pay a small fee, and sometimes you're lucky to just find it on another website in which you can stream it for free. But I'm not advocating for any sort of illegal downloading, so you didn't hear that from me. So again, in this idea of the film, I want you to think about the characters in the film, and I want you to think about the characters, the theme, the setting, some of the larger messages that you see happening in these films, and then I want you to position these films or locate these films within a larger literary context. So in question number 2, you are thinking about questions related to genre. And when we think about genre for this class, we're thinking about the Harlem Renaissance as a genre, as a subgenre of African American literature. The modernist, realist, naturalist period is a subgenre. The Black Arts Movement is a subgenre. The contemporary period is a subgenre, and it also has subgenres within that subgenre. For instance, the woman's voice, or this idea of experimentalism or futurism. So I want you to think about how these films, or the films that you have chosen, would fit within these particular subgenres within the African American literary context. And again, you got to make sure that you provide concrete examples and use those examples to support your observations. And finally, you began to work with question number 3 last week in regards to finding a scholarly source. Now, one of the things that I want to make a change in regards to question number 3 is is dealing with long division. Long division was published maybe 2 years ago, so there's not going to be a lot of academic scholarly research on long division, but there will be reviews on long division. So just to make things easy, just take out long division for question number 3, and I'm going to put that on the announcements page. Because you're going to already deal with long division in question number 1, don't worry about trying to find a scholarly article for question number 3. That's one of the things that happens, in literary analysis. Not just literary analysis, but academic writing. It takes, unlike journalism, unlike blogging, usually when something is published or an event happens or a conflict arises in the public setting, a lot of times within those genres, it's written about right away. Or if a film comes out, a film critique or a review is written, a week after the film is released. But when it comes to academic writing, a lot of times, because of the peer review process and because of the fact-checking process, it takes a couple of years after the actual product is published for people to start seeing academic research on that particular text. So keep that in mind, even as you move forward in your future classes and do more research in other areas. So again, with question number 3, just take out Kiesi Lyman's long division as an option. And if I were you, I would stick to those examples that I have in the content section of eLearning. And throughout the next couple of weeks, I'm also going to be posting other academic articles that I come across that are also fair game when it comes to answering question number 3. But if you have any questions about answering question number 3, or what's a scholarly source and what's not a scholarly source, please be sure to ask. And finally, for the final assignment, you will submit your final assignment in the Dropbox folder in e-learning. It's already up. I know that I've been pretty flexible about due dates over the course of this semester with other assignments, but for this assignment, because we're at the tail end of the semester and I have to get grades in, there are no exceptions when it comes to the deadline for the final assignment. So make sure that you read that carefully and plan for that effectively, because the final assignment will be due on June 29th. On the assignment sheet, it says 8 a.m., but I'm giving you a little bit more leeway and I'm saying 8 p.m. So make sure that you turn in your final assignment no later than June 29th, no later than 8 p.m. Anything that comes after that, I cannot grade it, okay? Not just because I'm being mean, but because we are working with other deadlines set forth by the college and the state. All right, so make sure that you have that in no later than 8 p.m. on June 29th. And if I were you, I would try to get that in as much as before the deadline as possible. That's pretty much all I have to say for at this point. Happy reading, happy writing. Again, if you have any questions or comments, let me know over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, I'll be posting things that I think that, supplement the things that we've been reading over the course of the semester. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you in cyberspace.